Oh my God, you're so slow. You are so slow. Hello, friends and neighbors. Good to see you. I'm Tad. It is 1 o'clock in the morning, California time. And it's a 1 o'clock in the morning kind of a feeling going on here. Nothing huge to report, just the normal ups and downs of life for a working writer. Namely that I'm dealing with all the usual stuff that we deal with in our lives, plus I'm working. And actually, oh God, I just remembered something. I've got 4 huge boxes of books that I imagine are one of the new publications. Maybe, God, I don't know. Would they really have sent me that many copies of Brothers of the Wind? Because I don't think the other one's anywhere. Well, no, of course it's not out yet. I haven't even written the front material yet, the acknowledgments and such. Well, anyway, there's 4 huge boxes of books sitting out on the doorstep at our house because they were too large for me to bring up with my sore arms. So I just suddenly remembered they've been sitting there all day. Well, strange, but true. Anyway, so hoping that you all are well and that things are going well with you. Let me see let me quickly check something here. Okay, so video. Yeah, the video is the right webcam. But there, we could make it up higher. There we go. That should be better. Anyway, I'm still figuring things out, as you can see, but at least we don't seem to be having the same problem of the Facebook broadcasting material telling me every 5 seconds that my frame rate was too low. So we will hope that that's all as it should be, and I'm figuring out as I go. Let me see, anything else to discuss? No, not really. It's been a relatively quiet week. It's one of those weeks where um, I like start out by saying, okay, I'm done with the weekend. So I've done all my readings, and, now Monday is here and I can, sit down and get to work on my book again and stuff like that. Not that I don't do that on the weekends also, but that's kind of like, as is often the case with me, I have to mark my life with the things that are different, because otherwise my everyday is really quite the same, mostly at home, mostly working, mostly all working on the same project at any given time. And in this case, working on a project I've been working on since approximately 2014, with a few exceptions scattered around in the middle there. But generally, yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing since 2014. So it's been nothing out of the ordinary. Oh, but the thing I was saying was that, so I look, it's Monday, and then bang, 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 the week goes past, and all of a sudden it's Friday, and I'm going, hang on, that means tomorrow night, early Sunday morning, I'm going to be reading again. Wow, is that like the week's gone past that quickly? Why have I not gotten more work done? And the reasons, of course, are the same reasons that everybody wonders that sometimes, which is, like children, animals, bills, appointments, crises of various kinds and sorts. I'm sitting there spending 2 hours online trying to figure out how to read an asbestos report, stuff like that. And every day has, a whole handful of these things. But again, I am not claiming any individual anything for myself that everybody else doesn't have to go through in some shape or form. It's just that when all you do is work on one project, um, you have a much better sense of what else is going on that is distracting you from that project. I mean, I work at home, so I'm either working on house stuff, family stuff, or book stuff. Anyway, so was there anything else that was really necessary to talk about? No, not really. Nothing to share. Everybody's fine. Yeah, animals are fine. Family is staying out of trouble generally. We're all moving forward with various projects and things. Kids are doing school things and life organization and setting out into the adult world things, or preparatory to setting out into the adult world things. And Deb is, of course, working on her fabric art, which is what takes up a huge amount of her time when she's not managing our business, which is the business of the books and the intellectual property and the contracts and all that stuff, which sounds fancier than it really is, which sounds like, oh yes, we're just clipping coupons for our many investments. No, but it means that periodically somebody calls up and says, quick, we need such and such. Do you have the contracts that were done 15 years ago for such and such, because we have to redo something or whatever. And a lot of stuff like that Deborah has to take care of, and does an admirable job, I must say, taking care of as well. And of course, for those of you who don't know, just here's a little bit of interesting trivia. I'm sure most of you do, but Deborah was herself a publisher. That's how we met. She was my British publisher back in the late 1980s, early 1990s when we first met. And so she is extremely well versed in all of this stuff. And she was an excellent publisher too. One quick story, which I probably have told before, but if I haven't, I'll just make it fast just in case I have, which was that after she left my British publishing company, some year or two later, while we were still living in London, the British company called me up, and somebody was trying to tell me something about one of the contracts. And, some minor functionary was saying, well, the contract says that blah, 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 and the rights revert to you only if such and such happens, and that hasn't happened, so you don't have the rights to that, or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, whatever it was. And I said, hang on for just a second. Let me put my wife on the phone. And I could hear the audible, like the question mark that was floating over the person's head on the other end, like, why is he putting his wife on the phone? And Deb got on and said, okay, tell me again what you just told Dad. And this guy, this poor blip, goes down the whole list. And Deborah says, actually, no, you're completely wrong about that. And he's kind of, and she says, look down at the bottom of the contract you're quoting from. Do you see that? See the name there, Deborah Beale? That's me. I was the publisher when that contract was made. I know exactly what's in that contract. And now I'm married to the guy who the contract was made with. So I now have a vested interest in making sure that the contract is fulfilled. And it was such a great moment. I mean, I was just sitting there going, just like a child. I was like, yeah, hit him. Hit him, hit him again. It was grand. It was exactly like the moment in the Woody Allen movie Annie Hall, where they're standing out in front of the movie theater and some blowhard is telling his date all about Marshall McLuhan, and what Marshall McLuhan's book means. And Woody Allen says, God, don't you wish that Marshall McLuhan is actually here and could, listen to this idiot? And Marshall McLuhan, of course, because it's a movie, appears and tells the guy, actually, you're completely wrong about my work, and you show a profound misunderstanding of pretty much everything I was doing. that was my moment, my Marshall McLuhan moment. It was great. Anyway, so that's what we're working on. And see, I've still managed to waste many minutes, but those of you who haven't heard the story before, it was worth telling. And those of you who have heard the story before, well, that's what you're going to have to put up with, because I'm old and I'm at the point where I'm going to be telling stories more than once. Anyway, so we're going to be reading tonight. Obviously, we are about halfway. Yeah, pretty much almost. See where that piece of paper is there? We're almost halfway through the first Otherland book. I'm beginning to think that at the end of this Otherland book, I'm going to rethink my reading approach. Not so much that I won't be here anymore, but it means that I may start doing something besides just reading, or reading more selectively and doing other things, just to change things up, because we're coming up now on 2 years I've been reading. And for one thing, for various reasons, I've been reading my own stuff because I know I have the right to read it. and you know, at a certain point, I'm bloody sick of myself. It's bad enough that I have to, you know, come on and talk about myself sometimes, or anywhere that I have to talk about myself because I'm not that interested in me. But also to have to read my own stuff, which fortunately is not like a horrible pain. I mean, it's not dreadfully embarrassing, but you know, I'm still like, I can't help reading something and going like, oh God, this bit goes on a little too long, or oh, you know, I could have made that snappier, or you know. The older the books, obviously, the more I feel that way because the more I've changed as a writer. Anyway, so at some point, after I finish this Otherland volume in another couple of months or whatever it's going to take, um, then you know I'm going to try and maybe think of some way to mix it up a little bit. You know, I don't know, more juggling, more folk singing, more animal acts. I don't know. Um, Unfortunately, the cat that lives down here is probably the least entertaining cat. She's very sweet, but she's socially a little backward. She's a little socially backward. She was kind of raised, I think, for many years, kind of lived in one room, and as a result, she doesn't even want to go outside. You know, I mean, I'll open the door and you can sometimes lead her out, you know, a few yards out past the door, but then she wants to go back inside again. So she's kind of like, you know, one of those old prisoners who's been in jail for 50 years. You know, it's like the outside world is a little too much for her. I wish I'd gotten her earlier, but there you go. At least we give her a good and loving home and good care, and you know, she gets regular toys and treats and brushing and petting and you know love and all that stuff. But she's not super entertaining. Our other cat who used to live down here with me, Jupiter, was hilarious and crazy, and you know just an absolute personality. And we miss him, of course. But yeah, he would have been right up here. He would have been up on the table, up on the desk here in front of me. He would have been walking across the keyboard. He would have been nudging me with his chin for attention. He would have been doing all kinds of things. Lily, if you occasionally see her walk past in the background, that's about the most you can hope for. Anyway, and I'm not bringing the big dog down here because he would eat the cat. And the small dog is annoying and charming in his sort of way, but I'd have to lift him up and hold him. And I already had to drive him over to something the other day while holding him up like this so he could see and wouldn't get car sick. I don't really want to have to do my broadcast every night holding up a dog so he doesn't get car sick or broadcast sick or whatever would happen to him. I guarantee you it would be problematic. Anyway, as usual, I've gone wandering all around the mulberry bush and said basically nothing. So I suppose I should get to reading. So this chapter, which I'm just about to begin, is going to be mostly about Rini and the various things that happened. For those of you who haven't had a chance to catch up or missed out on an episode or two, actually the last episode was all about Paul in the Looking Glass land. But the last thing that happened with Rini was that she went to her friend, Dr. Susan Van Bleek. And after she left Susan Van Bleek, people broke into her home and wrecked all of Dr. Van Bleek's equipment and beat Dr. Van Bleek so badly that after communicating briefly with Rini from her hospital bed, she later on died. And Rini has tracked down the old hacker crony of Dr. Van Bleek's, or at least she thinks she knows now who it is. So I think that comes up in this chapter. Anyway, so without any further ado, chapter 19, Fragments. Netfeed News. Indoor storm kills 3. Visual. Beach wreckage. Torn dome overhead. Voiceover. 3 people were killed and 14 more hospitalized when an artificial indoor beach attraction went out of control in Bournemouth, England. Visual. Bubble Beach Park during normal operation. Malfunctioning wave machines and the collapse of the building's domed ceiling caused what one witness called an indoor tsunami, that resulted in 3 drownings and numerous other injuries when 16-foot-high waves swept up onto the artificial beach. Sabotage has not been ruled out. She had avoided it for 2 days, but she couldn't any longer. The doctor's death had raised the stakes. It was time to start looking for help, and this particular source couldn't be ignored, however much she might wish to. At least now she could do it at work, which wasn't quite so awful as having the squalor of the shelter all around her. She didn't dare black out the visual. It would be an admission of something, or it would be perceived that way, that she had gotten fat or that she couldn't face him. Rennie tilted the pad so that she would be posed in front of the least cluttered wall and the one potted plant which had survived the toxic office atmosphere. She knew the number. She had tracked it down the day after Susan's death. It had been something to do, something to keep her active, but she had realized even at the time that if she found it, she would have no choice but to use it. This, by the way, is not the hacker person that is being talked about here. She lit a cigarette, then looked around the office again, making sure that nothing in view of her pad's wide-angle lens looked too pathetic. She took a deep breath. Someone knocked at the door. "Damn! Come in!" Kabu poked his head inside. "Hello, Rennie? Is this a bad time to visit you?" For a moment, her mind leaped at the chance of a reprieve. "No, come in." It was disgusting groveling after excuses this way. "Well, actually, it is a bad time. I have to make a phone call I don't really want to make, but I'd better do it. Will you be on campus for a while?" He smiled. "I came to see you. I will wait." For a moment, she thought he meant he would wait in the office, a breathtakingly daunting prospect. But the small man merely bobbed his head and backed out, shutting the door behind him. Right. She took another drag on her cigarette. They were supposed to be relatively harmless, but if she smoked many more today, she would set herself on fire from the inside. A genuine case of spontaneous human combustion. She called the number. The male receptionist left the screen blacked, which was fine with her. "I'd like to speak with Mr. Cumi. Tell him it's Rennie, Irene Sulaweo." Much as she disliked her full name, she had been given it in honor of a hugely fat, hugely Christian great-aunt. It might establish a proper tone of detached adulthood. He answered quickly enough to catch her off balance, the visual flicking on as abruptly as if he had leapt out of a cupboard. "Rennie, I'm really surprised, but it's a good surprise. How are you? You look great." Del Rey looked good himself, which was probably why he'd brought the subject up. Stylish, if slightly conservative haircut, nice suit, shirt collar embroidered with metallic thread. But more had changed than just the shedding of his student guise. He looked different in some deeper, more profound way that she couldn't immediately categorize. "I'm okay." She was pleased with how steady her voice sounded. "Things have been interesting, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. How is your family? I talked to your mother for a minute or so, but she was just leaving." He briskly filled her in. Everybody was doing well, except for his younger brother, who had been in conflict with authority almost since his cradle days and continued to fall into and usually out of trouble. Rennie felt a little dreamy watching Del Rey talk, listening to his voice. It was all very strange, but not as painful as she'd expected. He was a completely different person than the one who had left her, who had, as she'd felt sure at the time, broken her heart forever. Not that he'd changed so drastically. It was more that he no longer mattered much. He might as well have been a friend's ex-lover and not her own. "So that's my story," he said. "I'm sure yours makes better listening, and I'm ready to hear it. Somehow I'm sure you didn't call me just for the sake of old times." Damn, thought Rennie. Del Rey might be a bureaucrat now. He might be a suit of the very kind they used to make fun of, but he hadn't become stupid. I seem to be in some trouble, she said, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it on the phone. Could we get together somewhere? Del Rey hesitated. He's got a wife, she realized, or a steady girlfriend. He doesn't know what exactly I'm asking for. I'm sorry to hear you're having a problem. I hope it's nothing serious. He paused again. I suppose I just need your advice. It's nothing that will get you in any trouble, not even with the woman in your life. His eyebrow went up. Did Mama tell you? I just guessed. What's her name? Dolly. We got married last year. He looked a little embarrassed. She's a solicitor. Renee felt her stomach churn, but again it was not as bad as she'd anticipated. Del Rey and Dolly? Please. I assume you don't go out much. Don't be nasty. You'd like her if you met her. I probably would. The idea, in fact, the whole conversation made her feel tired. Look, you can bring her along if you want to. This isn't some desperate attempt by a jilted lover to lure you back. Renee, he seemed honestly indignant. That's foolish. I want to help you if I can. Tell me what to do. Where should we meet? How about someplace on the Golden Mile after work? She would have a long bus ride back to the shelter, but at least she could do her groveling for favors in a pleasant atmosphere. Del Rey named a bar, quickly enough that she guessed it was a regular hangout of his, and asked her to give his best to her father and Stephen. He seemed to be waiting for news about them, her half of an informational hostage exchange, but there wasn't much she could tell without opening the whole thing up. She ended the conversation as quickly as she decently could and disconnected. He looks tame, she realized. It wasn't just the suit or the hair. Something that had been a little wild was gone, or at least very well hidden. Is that me too? Did he look at me and think, well, there she is, turned into a drab little teacher? She straightened up, stubbed out the cigarette, which had burned down unsmoked, and lit another. We'll see about that. Perversely, she felt almost proud of her strange and extensive problems. When was the last time he or his little dolly wife had their house burned down by an international conspiracy of fat men and Hindu deities? Kabu returned a few minutes later, but she didn't stop giggling for some time. It was close to hysterical, she knew, but it beat the hell out of crying. Del Rey regarded Kabu carefully. It was almost worth the extreme discomfort of having to meet him, to watch him struggle to figure out who the Bushman was and what his position was in Renee's life. Nice to meet you, he said, and shook the small man's hand with an admirably firm sincerity. Del Rey is an assistant minister with UNCOM, she explained, although she'd already told Kabu that on the ride over. She was pleased she'd brought her friend along. It tipped the balance in a subtle way, made her feel less like a discarded girlfriend begging a favor. He's a very important fellow. Del Rey frowned, hedging his bets in case he was being teased. Not very important, actually. A career man, still in the early stages. Kabu, who did not have the polite chit-chat reflexes of the urban middle class, simply nodded and then sat back against the thick cushion of the booth to stare at the antique, or imitation, more likely, swag chandeliers and heavy wooden paneling. Renee watched Del Rey summon a waitress, impressed by his casually proprietorial attitude. During the previous century, the bar would have been the preserve of white businessmen, a place where he and Renee and Kabu would have been discussed under the general heading of the Kafirs, or the Black Problem. But now Del Rey and other black professionals sat enthroned amidst the trappings of colonial empire. At least that much had changed, she thought. There were more than a few suited white men in the room, white women too, but they were only part of a clientele that also included blacks and Asians. Here, a form of real equality prevailed, at least, even if it was an equality of wealth and influence. The enemy now had no identifying color. Its only recognizable attribute was discontented poverty. Kabu ordered a beer. Rini asked for a glass of wine. "Just one drink," she said. "Then I'd like to take a walk." Del Rey raised his eyebrows at this. He continued to make casual conversation as the drinks came, but with a sort of wariness, as though he suspected that at any moment Rini might spring some unpleasant surprise. She skirted the main issue, telling him of Stephen's condition and of the fire, without a hint of what might connect the two. "Rini, that's terrible. I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "Do you need something? Help finding a place, money?" She shook her head, then swallowed the last of her wine. "No, thank you, but you're kind to ask. Can we take that walk now?" He nodded, bemused, and paid the bill. Kabu, who had drunk his beer in silence, followed them out onto the promenade. "Let's walk down the pier," Rini suggested. She could tell that he was growing irritated, but Del Rey had indeed become a politician. If he had still been his student self, he would have been angrily demanding answers, wanting to know why she was wasting his time. Rini decided that she approved of at least some of the ways he had changed. When they reached the end of the pier and were alone, except for a few fishermen and the purring of the breakers, she led them to a bench. "You will think I'm crazy," she said, "but I don't feel comfortable talking inside. It's very unlikely anyone can eavesdrop on us out here." He shrugged. "I don't think you're crazy." His voice sounded less certain than his words. "Someday you may be glad I'm taking such trouble. I don't particularly want to meet your wife, Del Rey, but I don't want anything to happen to her either. And I seem to have gotten myself in trouble with people who aren't very selective." His eyes narrowed. "Why don't you just talk to me?" She started from the beginning, staying as general as she could and skipping as lightly as possible over the several times she had misused her position at the Poly or subverted UN comm regulations. From time to time, she asked Kabu to corroborate what she was saying, and the small man did, although always with a somewhat distracted air. Rini could spare little attention, but she wondered briefly at his mood and what it might signify. Del Rey was largely silent, breaking in only to ask specific questions. He seemed interested by the inner workings of Mr. J's, but only shook his head, expressionless, when she told him of her speculations about the club. When she had brought him up to the present, describing the fire in her flat block and Susan's murder, he did not respond immediately, but sat watching a gull preen itself on a railing. "I don't know what to say. The whole story is astonishing." "What does that mean?" A spark of anger flared. "Does that mean astonishingly crazy, or astonishing so you'll do whatever you can to help me?" I I just don't know. It's a lot to absorb." He stared at her, perhaps trying to gauge how well he knew her after all these years without contact. "And I'm not quite sure what you want me to do either. I'm not part of the UN security or law enforcement. I'm a business liaison, Rini. I help chain stores make sure their systems follow UN guidelines. I don't know anything about the stuff you're talking about." "Damn it, Del Rey, you're part of the Politburo, as we used to call it. You're an insider. You must be able to do something, if only help me get information. Are these people under investigation at all? Has anyone beside me had weird experiences with this Happy Juggler Novelty Corporation? Who are they? I need answers from someone I can trust. I'm scared, Del Rey." He frowned. "Of course, I'll do what I can. Also, I think I need to get into Treehouse." "Treehouse? What in hell for? She briefly considered telling him of Susan's deathbed message, but decided against it. Susan's laborious last words were known only to her, Kabu, and Jeremiah Dako. She would keep them secret a while longer. I just need to go there. Can you help me? Rini, I never made it into Treehouse when I was a hash-smoking full-time student hacker. He smiled self-mockingly. Do you think I could get within miles of it now that I'm part of the UNCOM establishment? We are the enemy as far as they are concerned. Now it was her turn to frown. This isn't easy. You know I wouldn't ask if I didn't really need help. She blinked hard. Damn it, Del Rey, my baby brother is... She stopped, unwilling to go any farther in that dangerous direction. She would die before she would cry in front of him. He stood, then reached down to take her hand. He was still very handsome. I'll check around, Rini. Really, I will. I'll see what I can find. Be careful. Even if you think I'm crazy, don't just pretend I'm not and make your mistakes on the side of caution. Don't do anything stupid, and don't be obvious. I'll call you by the end of the week. He extended his hand to Kabu. Nice to have met you. The little man accepted the handshake. Everything Miss Sulaweo spoke of is true, he said gravely. These are bad people. You must not take this lightly. Del Rey nodded, a little flustered, then turned back to Rini. I'm truly sorry about Stephen. Give my regards to your father. He leaned forward and kissed her on the cheek, squeezed her once, then turned and walked back up the pier. Rini watched him go. When we broke up, she said at last, I couldn't imagine life without him. Always things change, said Kabu. The wind blows everything. I am frightened, Rini. She looked up. He had been silent for most of the bus ride, staring up at the buildings as they traveled through the windowed canyons of downtown Durban. Because of what happened to Susan? He shook his head. I mourn for her, yes, and I am angry at the people who did such a terrible thing. But I am frightened in a bigger way. He paused, looking down, his hands folded in his lap like a child threatened into good behavior. It is my dreams. You said you dreamed of something bad happening to me the night Susan was attacked. It is more than that. Since we went into that place, that club, my dreams have been very strong. I do not know what I fear exactly, but I feel that that we are all being stalked by something large and cruel. Rini's heart sped. She had dreamed something like that herself, hadn't she? Or was she remembering some dream of Kabu's, described by him, then absorbed as her own? I'm not surprised, she said carefully. We had a terrible experience. He shook his head sternly. I am not speaking of that kind of dreaming, Rini. Those are the dreams that trouble individuals, made up of the things in their own lives, the dreams of city people, if you will not take offense at my saying it. But I am speaking of something different, a kind of ripple in the dream that is dreaming us. I know the difference. What has come to me in the past days is the kind of dream my people have when the rain will soon fall after a long drought, or when strangers are approaching across the desert. This is a dream of what will be, not of what has been.
You mean seeing the future? I do not know. It does not seem that way to me, any more than seeing the shadow of something and knowing that the thing itself will follow is seeing the future. When Grandfather Mantis knew that his time on this earth was ending, when he knew that the time had come at last to sit down at the campfire with the All-Devourer, he had such dreams. Even when the sun is high, we know that it will sink again and night will come. There is nothing magical about such knowledge. She didn't know how to respond. Ideas like that irritated her sense of the rational, but she had never found it easy to dismiss Kabu's concerns and insights. Let's say I believe you, just for the sake of discussion. Something is stalking us, you said. What does that mean? That we have made enemies? But we know that already. Outside the bus window, the gleaming security towers of the business district were being supplanted by an increasingly shabby landscape of jerry-rigged flat blocks and storefront businesses, each with its own garish squirt of chemical neon on the front. The street crowd seemed purposeless from her perspective, eddying randomly like an inanimate liquid thing. I am speaking of something greater. There is a poem that I was taught in school, an English poet, I think. It spoke of a beast slouching toward Bethlehem. I remember that sort of. Blood-dimmed tides, anarchy loose in the world. He nodded. An apocalyptic image, I was told. A vision of the end of things. I spoke a moment ago of Mantis and the All-Devourer. Grandfather Mantis was told in a vision that a great time of change was coming, and he prepared his people to leave the earth forever because their time upon it had finished. His small, fine-featured face was solemn, but she could see something in his eyes and the set of his mouth, a kind of feverish despair. He was terrified. I feel that I am being granted such a vision, Rini. There is a great change coming. What were the words? A rough beast waiting to be born. A chill ran across the surface of Rini's skin, as though the bus cabin's long-expired air conditioning had suddenly sprung back to life. Was her friend going mad? He had said that city life had destroyed many of his people. Was this obsession with dreams and the myths of his ancestors the beginnings of a religious mania that would eventually destroy him too? I've done this to him, bad enough that he's had to adjust to a completely different kind of life. But now I've dragged him in right over his head into the weirdest things our society has to offer. It's like dropping a young child onto a battlefield or into an S&M orgy. And what should we do? She asked, struggling to remain at least outwardly calm. Where is this threat coming from? Do you know? He stared at her for a moment. Yes. I could not say what are its causes or what the results might be, but I do not need those things to sense the place the problem comes from. Even a blind man can find the campfire. I told you that the club, Mr. J's, was a bad place. It is, but it is not the heart of the shadow. I think it is like a hole in some very large nest of hornets. Do you see? If you put your ear to that hole, you will hear the sound of things that fly and seize and sting. But even if you seal it with mud, the hornets are still alive in the darkness inside, and they will find their way out of other holes. I'm confused, Kabu. I don't really know what you're saying. He gave her a tiny, sad smile. I do not know exactly myself, Rini. Just because I can see the shadow does not mean I can recognize what casts it. But there is more involved in this thing than merely your brother, more perhaps than even the lives of many other children like him. I smell it, like I smell the approach of a storm. I may not be able to understand any more clearly than that, but it is enough to frighten me very badly. They continued in silence until Kabu got off his stop in Chesterville a few minutes later. Rini waved to him from the window as the bus pulled away, but his words had upset her. She was torn. It was hard to know which was worse, to believe that her friend might be going mad or to think that he might truly know something that others did not. Something dreadful. The sun was going down as her bus headed toward Pinetown. The square, drab buildings cast long shadows. Rini watched the orange street lamps kindle and tried to imagine what kind of beasts might wait in the darkness beyond the circle of light. Del Rey was smiling, but he did not seem entirely happy to receive her call. Rini moved the exam she'd been preparing to one side of the screen that enlarged Del Rey's window. Have you found out anything? He shook his head. This isn't a good time for me to talk. Then would you like me to meet you somewhere? No. Look, I don't have much for you yet. It's a tricky situation. There's been a lot of interest in the corporation you asked about, but nothing obviously out of the ordinary. They own a bunch of clubs, some production companies, a couple of gear houses, mostly net-related stuff. There was one court case involving one of their other clubs that got as far as a lower court in China, filed by a woman named Quan. What do you mean, court case? What about? Again, he shook his head. A suit for negligence, something like that. It's probably nothing. The family dropped it before trial. Look, there's not much I can find out without getting access to sealed legal records. And it's not something I'm supposed to be doing, really. He hesitated. How's Stephen? Any better? No. Things have been pretty much the same for weeks now. She had dreamed of Stephen the night before, of him screaming for help at the bottom of a deep hole, while she tried to explain the urgency to some kind of policeman or the petty official who was paying more attention to stroking a sleek dog. Just thinking about the dream made her angry. So is that all you're going to tell me? There's not much? What about the people who own that horrible place? There must be names on the licenses, or is that too much trouble to find out? For a moment, his professional composure slipped. I don't have to do anything for you at all, you know. No. She stared at the screen, wondering what exactly she had once found so utterly engaging about him. He was just a nice-looking man in a suit. No, you don't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... I want to help, Rini. Things are just... He hesitated. Things are difficult for me at the moment. She wondered if he was referring to his domestic life or ordinary work crises or something more sinister. Well, I meant what I said. Be careful. And I do appreciate your help. I'll get you everything I can. It's just not as easy as it sounds. Take care. I will. Thank you. When he had hung up, she lit a cigarette, too unsettled to get back to work on the exam. It was hard to tell whether Del Rey's apparent agitation had to do with guilt over the way their relationship had ended, discomfort at having become embroiled in someone's bizarre conspiracy theory, or something else entirely. If it was the second thing, she couldn't really blame him.
6 months ago, if someone had brought the same crazy story to her, she would have been doubtful too. Even now, a strong case could be made that she had merely hit a patch of bad luck and was finding a way to string it all together into a structure that made sense. Wasn't that the way someone said religions and paranoid obsessions got started? As an attempt to make sense of a universe too large and too random for human comprehension? What did she have, really? Her brother had mysteriously fallen ill, but strange, inexplicable illnesses were the stuff of historical record since time out of mind and continued right up until the present day. There had been more sudden outbreaks of previously unknown viruses in the past 50 years than there had been in the 5 centuries before. She and Kabu had discovered a seeming correlation between the incidences of coma and net usage, but there were dozens of other possible explanations for that. Her flat block had burned, and although there had been no definitive report, there were certainly whispers of arson, but that too was remarkably unremarkable. She had no idea of the statistics, but she was quite sure there must be hundreds of arson fires in Durban every year, not to mention the thousands of accidental ones. The only things that even held up halfway as evidence were the murderous attack on Susan, the truly peculiar events surrounding Mr. J's, and the appearance of that astonishing golden city. But even these things could be odd but explicable happenstance. Only the strong links between these apparent coincidences separated her certainty. Only the strong links between these apparent coincidences separated her certainty that she was onto something from the most pathetic examples of persecution mania. Rini sighed. So, are Kabu and I legitimate whistleblowers, or are we turning into the kind of people you see on the tabnets, claiming space aliens are beaming messages into their brains? Susan hadn't thought so, or at least she had discovered something she thought was significant, even if Rini hadn't found a way to follow it up yet. Dr. Van Bleek had not been the kind of person to indulge anything she judged unwarranted foolishness, and even her closest of colleagues, let alone an ex-student she hadn't seen in years. What did she find out? What if we can't locate this Murat Sega Singh? Or what if we do, but he doesn't know what it was that Susan thought was significant? It was terrible to think she might have brought that dreadful attack onto her mentor, but it was also frustrating to think of the doctor working in her lab that night before it happened, perhaps discovering all manner of important things, even taking time to leave a message for her, but not bothering to record any of it. Who ever expected the world to change that rapidly? But it did. Rini had been unsealing another pack of cigarettes, but now she dropped them on the desk and asked her pad to call Susan's house, hoping to reach Jeremiah Dacot. The doctor's voice came on with her voicemail, dry and brisk. This is Susan Van Bleek. I'm doing something interesting right now. Yes, at my age. Leave a message, please. Rini found it hard to speak for a moment, but when she regained her voice, she asked Jeremiah to call her as soon as he could. She picked up her cigarettes again and moved the exam template back to the center of the screen. Jeremiah Dacot hung back at the door of the elevator. I cannot look at this place today. His eyes were red, and he looked 10 years older than the first time Rini had seen him. It makes me too angry, too sad. That's no problem. Rini let Kabu step out and patted Dacot's arm. Thank you for letting us have a look. I hope we find something. We'll come back upstairs if we need you. The police have been here and gone. I suppose it doesn't matter what you touch anymore. He helped Rini lift her bags out onto the floor and then pushed the button. The door shut, the elevator hummed upward, and Rini turned for her first look at the lab.
Oh, oh my God.
Sour liquid rose in her throat and she swallowed hard. She had not expected the damage to be so extensive. The people who had beaten Susan so viciously had done a savagely thorough job on her workplace as well.
They, they must have brought sledgehammers with them.
Every single one of the long tables had been smashed to the ground and its contents pulverized. Flindered housings and shattered components made a carpet of plastic mulch half a foot deep across nearly the entire lab floor, a jigsaw puzzle without a solution. The screens on every wall had been shattered too, their inner workings wrenched out through the jagged holes, cables dangling like the innards of a medieval torture victim. Kabu looked up from where he squatted, sifting jagged bits of debris through his fingers.
Surely these men were not merely robbers. No robber would spend so much time ruining expensive equipment, even if they were looking for money instead. I can't imagine it. God Almighty, look at this.
The thoroughness of the ruin exerted a horrifying fascination, universal entropy demonstrated for beginners. Pay attention, the wreckage seemed to declare. Some things cannot be undone, short of time pivoting in its groove and crawling back on itself. Rini tried to imagine such a thing, like a video clip running in reverse, every ruptured piece flying back to its original site, equipment reforming, tables rising again like animals startled awake. And if she could run it all back, Susan would return too, the spark of life leaping back into her cold body, her bones reknitting, the spatters of dried blood hidden under this wreckage liquescing and flowing together like mercury to leap from the floor and back into the doctor's closing wounds. Death itself would turn coward and flee. Rini shuddered. She suddenly felt weak and sick. It was all too terrible, too hopeless. She looked at Kabu as he idly handled the broken pieces of the doctor's work. At his slender, childlike back, and the weight of her responsibility returned to her. At this moment, it was not an unpleasant situation. People needed her. Susan was gone, and this horrible thing could not be undone. Better to think about real things, problems that could be solved. She took a breath, unsnapped one of the equipment bags she'd borrowed from the Polly, and lifted out a small station node. Her hands were shaking. She cleared a place on the floor next to a wall port and jacked it in.
We just hope this station box has enough power to run the domestic system, she said, pleased with the steadiness of her voice. Crisis past. Jeremiah said he's had to turn the lights and everything else on and off manually, so they've disabled it somehow. Could ordinary criminals do that? There's a lot of bootleg house-busting gear to be had these days, some of it very cheap. But I wouldn't think Susan would be the kind of person to leave her home vulnerable to that kind of assault, which suggests they must have had a pretty good package. I'll be able to tell you more if I can get into the house system.
Kabu frowned.
Did the police not investigate this? Of course they did. Murder of a rich and well-known professor. Jeremiah said they were down here for 3 days. The private guard people, too. And you and I certainly answered enough questions about our last afternoon here. But even if they found something, they won't share it with us civilians. I tried. Jeremiah tried. About 6 months from now, we might find out something useful. We can't wait that long.
She turned on the station node, which blinked instantly to life. It was a very nice piece of Asian hardware, which, if she dropped it anywhere between here and the Polly's lab, would cost her about half a year's salary to replace.
Let's see what's left and what it can tell us.
Rini slumped into the chair. Dako poured tea for her.
Will your friend want some? I guess so.
She stared at the steaming cup, too tired for the moment even to lift it. Dako hesitated, then sat down across from her.
Did you find anything? Anything to catch those murderers?
He held his own cup in trembling fingers. Rini wondered what it had been like for him to come back to this house the first time after the doctor's death.
No, they put some kind of data killer into the house system. I've tried every form of retrieval gear I could lay my hands on. It's a wonder anything still works here at all. The doctor made sure everything ran in parallel. That's what she called it, in case the system broke down.
There was a quiet pride in his voice.
Well, those bastards did their work in parallel too. Not only did they bomb the system, but they broke every piece of hardware they could get their hands on too.
Kabu walked into the kitchen holding something in his hands. Rini looked up, heart quickening.
What's that? I found this as I was leaving, caught between a lab table and the wall. It means nothing that I can see.
Rini grabbed at the piece of paper and smoothed it. Her own name, Irene, headed the page. Below, in Susan's unmistakable, shaky handwriting, were the words Atasco and Early M.
It doesn't mean anything to me, she said after some moments. It could have been there for months, I suppose. It may be some other Irene entirely, but we'd check it out. It's something, anyway.
Jeremiah could make no sense of it either. Rini's momentary excitement began to fade. Kabu sat down, his face solemn.
I saw the picture in the living room again as I passed, he said. The rock painting.
He stared at the cup before him. For a moment they were all silent. Rini thought they must look like they were conducting a séance.
I am very sorry, he continued abruptly. About what? I fear that I made Dr. Van Bleek feel uncomfortable about the picture on her wall. She was a good person. She valued it for what it meant, I think, even though it was not the work of her own people. She was so good.
Jeremiah sniffed angrily and dabbed his eyes with a napkin, then wiped his nose.
Too good. She didn't deserve this. They should find these men and hang them, just like they did in the old days. She told us something important anyway, Rini said, and she may have left us this note. We'll do our best to find out what she learned. And if it leads us to the people that did that.
She paused, remembering the brutally impersonal thoroughness of the destruction below.
Well, I'll do whatever I can do to see them brought to justice. Justice. Dako said the word like it tasted bad. When has anyone ever gotten justice in this country?
And I think I'm going to stop there because there's still several more pages of the chapter, and I just realized I haven't even checked in with the folks who checked in with me today. So let's see who we've got here and who said hello or who I'm saying hello to. Well, Olaf was here. Hello, Olaf. Good to see you as always. Ronnie, good morning. Glad you dropped by. Holger, checking in from sunny Waldesruhe. I'm glad to hear that. And Chris and the other Tadix. That's a frightening thought. Anyway, Chris, that's Chris Fab, of course. Good to see you. Kristen, hello. Mark, good morning. Glad to see you. Leah, hello. And Cliff, hi, Cliff. Good to see you. Anamika, good morning to you. Mahmoud, a pleasure as always. Yo, you've got the corona. Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear it. I hope that you've had all the boosters and it's a mild case. Fingers crossed and sending good health wishes in your direction, Mahmoud, my friend. Wouter, hello. Wouter's checking in from the chilly Netherlands. Anyway, thank you for the comment, Wouter. I realized you're commenting to something I'd put on my page the other day, my Facebook page. Iris, hello, Iris. Good morning to you. And let's see who else is there. Petra, hello, Petra. Yes, gute Besserung to Mahmoud. Very important. Jessica, hello, Jessica, or Jessica, if I'm going to give it the proper German pronunciation. And who else? Ilva, my dear. Good morning. Sun is shining again. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And it was Holger's birthday yesterday. Shh. Happy birthday, Holger. Happy birthday, even if it's only a day late. Or even if it is a day late, it's only a day late, and you haven't had another birthday since then. You're still 364 days away. So, frohe Geburtstag. Actually, I think it's anyway. I know it's Geburtstag, but I think it's not frohe. It's somebody can remind me at some point. Christina, I already said hello to. Holger. Everybody's now saying hello and checking in. Jeremy, hello, hello. That's okay. I'm just dying here. Don't worry about it. Ronnie, pre-ordered Deathless Prince and the Peach Maiden. Yes, I as I said, I still don't have any information about that, but it's coming out in the UK apparently, but I don't know when it's coming out in America, so I'm confused. I will tell you when I know about it as soon as I can. Told you about The Last King of Ostenard in summer 13. Yes, okay, fair enough. But I don't think I actually started working on it for a while there. I'd done some thinking about it, but I didn't really start working on it till spring or summer of 2014, I suspect. But now I'll have to check because my historical accuracy has been questioned by Ilva, and Ilva always knows more about these things than I do. So for my own pride, I'll have to check and see why I was so certain it was 2014. Jeremy enjoyed the Deb contract story. You hadn't heard that before? Oh yeah, it was just a precious, precious moment. And I think, let's see if I missed anybody. Ray, there's Ray Weatherford. Hello, Ray. Good to see you. Saul. Hello, Saul. Lovely to see you too. And Becky, hello. And I think that's everybody who checked in. And now I have had a chance to say hello. And sorry I missed you at the beginning. I was, as usual, I'm messing around with this new format. And while I figured out most of it now, there's still things where I'm only at the last moment going, oh, wait, I can crank up the, the resolution and things like that. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to wrap it up for the night. I will continue with this chapter at 7 p.m. for those of you who will be around, or obviously you can catch it either on my Facebook page. You can access it through the social media stuff, or Chris Fab has been posting them on YouTube. I know because every time I go on YouTube, I have to look at an entire row of my own video images, which is horrifying beyond belief. But they're there. If those of you with the strong masochistic tendencies can, oh, Anamika, I didn't see you. Did I say hello to you? I don't think I did. Hello, Anamika. Good to see you. Those of you with strong masochistic tendencies can collect the whole set. And until I see you again, whether that's at 7 p.m. or next Sunday morning at 1 a.m. my time, I thank you very much for joining me and remind you to take good care of yourselves, especially you, Mahmoud. Take very good care of yourself and get well soon, and keep checking in to let us know how you're doing. And seriously, please let us know. And I'm sure now many people here want to hear how you are and make sure that you're recovering well. And take care of those around you, your loved ones, but also your friends and your neighbors and, anybody who seems to need it. These can be very tough times, and people need each other. So with that, I say good night. Ciao, ragazzi. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir. A bientôt. And cheers, right, mate? And I will see you soon. Peace.